This time on TNO, we're taking a look at an antique Crescent Arms 12 gauge. Alright guys, we're going to rewind things about 120 years to the good old days of Sidelocks, twist steel, and black powder. First things first with these old black powder guns, and that's you want to make sure your barrels are safe to shoot. Black powder residue, if not cleaned properly, does attract moisture and creates rust issues, and that's even more important with these laminated barrels. That being said, this one's in pretty good shape for its age. This is under the J. Cooper brand name, and they literally come in hundreds of different brand names, but it's primarily Crescent Arms that was importing these from Belgium in between about the 1850s and 1950s. Now, these aren't the world's fanciest shotguns. They're designed, and their intended purpose was as a utility-grade gun, for guys to use on the farm or for people to do some hunting if they didn't have a lot of money. Even today, they're still relatively cheap, going for between $75 and $150 US and $200 to $300 Canadian. These are some of the easier firearms from the antique era to get the history off of, just because the Belgians had quite a plethora of stamps, and they stamped everything. If you go online, there's all sorts of easily accessible websites and forums that'll give you the history on these stamps and the dates they ran through, and it'll give you a better idea what you got for a shotgun. We'll give you a quick run through on this one to give you an idea what you're looking at. First, we have the Breech proof stamp, and this one has been used since 1853. Then we have the choke in millimeters. This barrel's a modified. Then the provisional barrel proof stamps, beginning use in 1852. Then we have the inspector's mark. Then the nominal gauge diameter for a black powder proofed shotgun. And finally, a black powder proof stamp to conform with German law beginning in 1893. Now, these guns came with field-grade walnut stocks with an oil finish, and either laminated steel barrels or the more modern fluid steel barrels. This gun has 30-inch barrels, and that gives you a nice smooth swing. The overall length is 46 1/2 inches, and the length of pull to the center of the two triggers is about 13 1/2 inches. They were primarily offered in 12 gauge, but there are some 16 and 20s floating around out there. It's important to remember that the chamber sizes on these are shorter than our new modern cartridges, so you have to cut down your hulls and use black powder. If you haven't tried black powder before, it's definitely something you gotta try. There's just a certain nostalgia to the sound, the smell, and the smoke rolling out the end of the barrel. And it's incredibly easy and straightforward to hand load black powder at home too, and you don't even need a press for it. Now, I'm going to run you through how I hand load, but you want to do your own research and be comfortable with it before you try. But what I do is I take a modern 2 3/4 inch shell, and I cut that down to 2 1/2 inches, and then decap and prime that on my load all. But you can even use a nail and a socket to do the decapping and priming yourself if you don't have a loading machine. And then I use an 18mm Harbor Freight punch to cut shot cards out of old cardboard boxes and wadding out of old denim. Finally, I like to use what's called a square load, and that's equal parts black powder to shot by volume. For small game hunting, I generally use 7/8 of an ounce of 2FG powder topped with 7/8 of an ounce of number 6 shot. These 7/8 ounce loads are plenty enough for small game, and there's still enough powder in there that you get that muzzle flash and that puff of smoke, so anybody near you knows you're hunting with black powder. A couple of safety tips when taking these old guns into the field, and the first thing you need to be aware of is they're not drop-safe guns. So I never cock the hammers on these until I'm on an animal. You also want to be aware of the fact that if you strike the back of an uncocked hammer into the firing pin, it is possible to discharge a round. And you also want to be aware that you're going to have some light strikes with old guns, and the wax that I use to protect this gun actually gets into the firing pin channel and causes me more issues than most people will have. With any shotgun, you want to pattern it, and it's even more important if you're making your own wads because they do become less predictable as you get out there in range.
Got him.
This shotgun's put plenty of food on my table, and it's almost surreal to think of how many people have used it to put food on their family's tables over the 120 years this gun's been around. If you come across one of these, don't let the black powder scare you off. They're fun to shoot at the range, and if you do take them out into the field, they'll definitely put some food on the fire for you. Until next time, guys.